kids can't even make a failure of a failure," the in-laws said in unison, stabbing me in the heart. "Right?" Vincent agreed with the in-laws. I bit my lip and endured this unbearable situation. The in-laws looked at me with a face still eager to complain, laughing vulgarly and loudly. But immediately after, Vincent couldn't hold back his laughter. As Vincent burst out laughing, all the relatives gathered, burst into laughter. With roaring laughter. Surprised by Vincent and the relatives suddenly laughing, the in-laws' eyes widened. "Did everyone hear that just now?" Ignoring the in-laws, who couldn't grasp the situation, Vincent turned to the relatives. The relatives and I were nodding vigorously. "Huh?" Finally realizing they were left out of the loop, the in-laws' faces turned to panic. This was my chance. A chance for revenge against the in-laws who had been tormenting and insulting me for so long. I clenched my fists tightly. "My name is Heidi. I'm 33 years old and work for a publishing house. Since I was little, I loved books because Mom, my single mother, used to read me picture books. Becoming a literary editor has been my dream since then, and I'm proud to be working in editing now. I've been working at the same company since graduating from college, starting in sales and magazine assignments, and finally moving to literary editing 3 years ago. However, at first, I had no idea what to do in literary editing. Unlike sales or magazine editing, I was unable to make accurate judgments in literary editing. It was Vincent, my husband and colleague in literary editing, who reached out to me then. Vincent was in his 5th year of literary editing and taught me everything I didn't understand. He was very kind to his subordinates and meticulous in his work. He took on the disliked task of training newcomers out of his kindness. Vincent and I began to spend more time together. Our distance inevitably closed. When Vincent invited me to dinner under the guise of work consultation, we ended up enjoying drinks and getting drunk together. We started meeting more in private, and eventually, Vincent confessed his feelings to me. Feeling the same, I joyfully accepted, and we began dating. A year later, Vincent proposed, and we happily became husband and wife. Even after marrying Vincent, I didn't quit my job. Editing is a very busy job, often working late into the night. Though we start work a bit later in the morning, the hours are still overwhelmingly long compared to other jobs. At first, my mother, living far away, was worried, but when I told her I loved editing, she supported me, saying, "If you love it that much, continue even after marriage or having kids." Vincent, understanding the same work. "If it's the same job, I understand, and it's okay." He also encouraged me. That's why I didn't quit after marriage and still work in literary editing with Vincent. I was so happy to have a family with a kind person with the same interests. Little did I know what married life had in store. It all started with a phone call. A month after our marriage, I returned home earlier than Vincent and was preparing dinner when my mobile phone rang. Wondering who it could be, I saw an unfamiliar number. I hesitantly pressed the call button. "Hello?" "Ah, Heidi. Finally you answered. I thought you wouldn't pick up." I frowned for a moment at the sound of my mother-in-law Cassandra's husky voice. My in-laws lived in a town about 3 miles from our house, relatively close by. Since my mother lived in a remote area, I thought of relying on my in-laws if needed. "I've been calling you several times, and you didn't answer." "Ah, I'm sorry about that. I had a habit of setting my mobile phone to silent mode as soon as I got home, so I didn't notice Cassandra's multiple calls. I had only met Cassandra twice before our wedding. During the greeting and the family meetup, and both times she looked at me sternly, as if grading me. That's why I reflectively became uncomfortable around Cassandra, and had no interaction with her until today. Apart from that, Heidi, do you know about that super popular cake shop near your house? Cake? Oh, the one on TV, right? Yes, exactly. Get a cake from there right now and bring it to me. Right now? I looked at the clock as Cassandra said this. It was 9:12 p.m. Cake shops aren't open at this time. And if she wanted cake, why didn't she just go herself tomorrow? Why ask me? I mean, the cake shop is probably closed now. I can go tomorrow, but I have work, so I can't promise anything. While I was thinking about my schedule for tomorrow, Cassandra accused me of being stingy. My legs are bad. That's why I'm asking you. Can't you do a favor for me? Taken aback by Cassandra's sudden stern tone, I stumbled over my words. This was my first real conversation with Cassandra. I didn't know she was the type to command others like this. I can try tomorrow. Just please not today. Fine. I'll let it slide because you're Vincent's wife. Buy the cake as soon as the shop opens tomorrow. After saying what she wanted, Cassandra roughly hung up. What's with her? Coming home tired from work, I was further drained by Cassandra's unreasonable demand. But well, if it was just buying a cake tomorrow. I resigned myself to the task and had dinner in our still lovely, newlywed atmosphere when Vincent returned an hour later. The next day, I left home an hour earlier than usual. You leaving already? Yes, I'm a bit swamped at work today. Okay, have a good day. Not wanting to worry Vincent, I lied a little. He saw me off without suspicion. I bought the most popular cake from the shop as Cassandra instructed and delivered it to her house. Oh, you're late. Did you oversleep? Despite me bringing the cake, Cassandra teased me. I was stunned by her nerve. No, I went right when they opened. Sorry for being late. Stop. Don't show me such a depressing face first thing in the morning. I'll graciously accept this then. Without a thank you, Cassandra just took the cake and tried to go inside. I stopped her. Wait. The money for it? Money? There is none. It's fine. You're working and earning, aren't you? Cassandra dismissed my request and slammed the door. I stood there dazed for a while. The cost of the cake wasn't much. But still, isn't it rude not to pay or even thank someone for buying it? Not to mention her belittling remarks. Cassandra's true nature, unknown before marriage, became apparent, and my heart raced. The thought of having to deal with her from now on was daunting. As I feared, Cassandra began ordering me around after the cake incident. Sometimes it was to buy a brand wallet from a department store sale, sometimes to cook for her. Eventually, she demanded a monthly allowance, which exhausted me. Even though we were both working, living in an expensive downtown apartment was a struggle. We were barely managing our daily lives with savings. Sending money was out of the question. I can't possibly do that. I'll bring a cake again. Let's settle for that. Despite my refusal, Cassandra persistently called, asking, Where's my allowance? I grew to dread seeing her calls, but didn't want to worry Vincent, so I said nothing. 2 years into our marriage, the situation continued. Vincent and I had been talking about having children for about a year, but it wasn't happening. Worried, I got checked at a clinic and found the infertility issue was with me. Though not to the extent of being unable to conceive, Vincent and I decided I should take a break from work and focus on conception planning. Conception planning was tough and grueling. I was often pushed to my limits, both mentally and physically. Let's keep trying at our own pace. But Vincent always encouraged me. Tears welled up in my eyes, thinking about how kind my husband Vincent is. With Vincent by my side, I felt I could endure the tough conception planning. With this thought, I decided to stay positive, when suddenly Cassandra called again. "Heidi, still no child? I'm eager to see my grandchild. Well, it's impossible for you, isn't it? Why did Vincent even marry you?" "How can you say that?" I was shocked to be greeted with such heartless words upon answering the call. Cassandra started calling daily, pressuring me about having a child. It wasn't just Cassandra. Even my father-in-law made similar calls. If I didn't answer, they would call back repeatedly, forcing me to eventually pick up. I desperately endured the attacks from my in-laws. However, Vincent noticed something was off and asked me one day, "Is something wrong?" I had intended not to tell Vincent about Cassandra, but his kind inquiry broke the dam holding back my emotions. "Vincent, actually," I confessed about the orders and sarcasm I'd been receiving from Cassandra since our marriage, including the current attacks about the allowance and child. Tears naturally flowed, revealing all the frustration I had been holding back. "It must have been hard for you. I'm sorry I didn't notice sooner." After listening to my story, Vincent apologized with a sorry look. Looking at him, I noticed tears in Vincent's eyes too. "No, it's my fault for not telling you." "That's not true. I had no idea you were suffering so much. I can't forgive this. It's been a long time since I've been this angry." Vincent's body trembled with anger. I was touched that he empathized with my feelings. "We can't just let Mom and the others be. I have a little plan." "A plan?" "Yeah, we're gathering with relatives for Christmas, right? Then we'll..." Vincent shared his plan to discipline the in-laws with me. "I don't know if it will work, but let's try our best." Hearing Vincent's firm voice, I felt a great sense of relief. I'm not alone. I'll stand up to the in-laws, believing in Vincent. Months passed since then. Over these months, I continued to endure verbal abuse from Cassandra and father-in-law about the allowance and child. On calls with Mom, I acted as if nothing was wrong, but recently she said something concerning. "You know, I got a call from an unknown number the other day." Mom, a single mother who worked hard for her whole life, has started showing early signs of forgetfulness, so I often half believed her stories. But this time, I needed to listen seriously. As I heard more from Mom, a shocking truth came to light. "That's unforgivable. I'll definitely protect you, Mom." "Okay." Like a child, Mom earnestly nodded over the phone. My mind was filled with what I heard from Mom. Amidst all this, Christmas arrived. Every year, relatives gather at Vincent's parents' house for Christmas. With a sense of resolve, I went to the in-laws' house with Vincent. When we arrived, aunts and uncles were already gathered, and we were the last to arrive. "Oh, Heidi, you're late." "Not helping at all. Such a carefree person." Even with Vincent's presence, the in-laws only ridiculed me. "Merry Christmas, everyone." Ignoring their snide remarks, I merely greeted them formally, to their apparent annoyance. Then, I helped with meal preparations and joined the relatives at the dining table. Father-in-law was distributing champagne to everyone. However, I refrained from drinking the champagne. At that, the in-laws sharply glared at me, saying, "What's the matter, Heidi? Got a complaint?" "Not drinking the champagne we offered. What kind of daughter-in-law are you?" "That's because..." Caught off guard for being berated for merely not drinking champagne, I could only bow my head in front of all the relatives. Eventually, the in-laws opened their mouths again and let out an annoyed ah sound. "You can't even have children. A complete failure." The in-laws' united accusation pierced my heart. That's right. Vincent also agreed with the in-laws. In this unbearable situation, I bit my lip and endured. The in-laws looked at me with a face eager to complain more, laughing vulgarly and loudly. But just then, Vincent couldn't hold back his laughter. As Vincent burst out laughing, all the relatives gathered burst into with roaring laughter. The in-laws, surprised by Vincent and everyone suddenly laughing, widened their eyes in shock. Did everyone hear that just now? Ignoring the in-laws who couldn't grasp the situation, Vincent turned to the relatives. The relatives and I were nodding vigorously. Finally realizing they were being left out, the in-laws' faces filled with panic. This was my chance. A chance for revenge against the in-laws who had tormented and insulted me for so long. I clenched my fists tightly. Mom and Dad, didn't you know? Heidi is actually pregnant. Pregnant? The in-laws were shocked. Considering they knew about my infertility and had constantly complained to me to have children quickly, their surprise at the news of my pregnancy was understandable. In fact, as Vincent said, I had discovered my pregnancy 3 months ago. I was already in my 5th month and had just entered the stable phase. Vincent had supposedly messaged the in-laws about it, but as expected, they only care about what they want to do, Vincent had said. They seemed to have overlooked his message. Still, to ignore an important message from their son, they used to tell me, "Poor Vincent, having a wife who can't have children." Their inconsistency in words and actions made me sigh in disbelief. Announcing my pregnancy today was a plan Vincent and I had discussed beforehand. We had also informed the relatives in advance about the harassment I had been facing from the in-laws, securing their support. So the relatives already knew about my pregnancy, and the in-laws were the only ones out of the loop. Vincent had pretended to side with the in-laws at first to provoke them. "I'm sorry for not telling you directly. I've been feeling sick due to morning sickness and couldn't visit you." The in-laws recoiled. "What? We didn't hear about this. Hey, why are we the only ones who didn't know?" "That's right. It's so rude. That's what happens when you have a senile mother." Despite their own failure to notice the message from their son, the in-laws blamed me for not knowing about the child. But what caught my attention more than being blamed by Cassandra's comment? "Cassandra, how did you know my mom is senile?" "Huh?" That's right. Cassandra had just referred to my mom as senile. Mom's recent onset of forgetfulness was a new development, and I hadn't told anyone but Vincent. It was odd that Cassandra knew about it. Cassandra's shoulders twitched for a moment. "I just guessed, thinking it must be the case with Samantha." But then she brazenly retorted. But such an excuse didn't convince me. I looked at the in-laws and said, "Trevor, Cassandra, you two committed a fraud scam on my mom, didn't you?" The word fraud scam sent a chill through the room. The in-laws' faces stiffened. "What nonsense! How dare you accuse us of being fraudsters?" "Heidi, I always thought you lacked common sense, but this is too much." The in-laws, seemingly believing my claim to be a bluff, acted nonchalant. I felt pity for the two who couldn't honestly admit their wrongdoing. "There's evidence, look." I pulled out a piece of paper from my bag. It was a copy of Mom's account screen. Recently, Mom had told me, "I got a call from an unknown number." Concerned that someone might be taking advantage of her forgetfulness, I had always been cautious. Living far away, I couldn't meet her often. If there was anything I could do to protect Mom, I wanted to do my utmost. Mom told me about a suspicious call where someone posing as a credit card company demanded payment for an outstanding balance. Mom, whose judgment is impaired, believed there was an unpaid balance and transferred the money to the account provided. It wasn't just $10 or $100. It was a whopping $3,000. I begged Mom to send me the account screen from that time immediately. When I saw the account screen Mom sent, I felt dizzy. The recipient of the transfer was simply listed as Cassandra Nelson. Cassandra's name. Mom, in her confusion, had not realized the recipient was Cassandra and had transferred the money. Even after seeing this, do you still say you didn't commit fraud? Mom said she was asked to pay an outstanding balance by the credit card company. But it's strange that the transfer was to Cassandra, isn't it? My words left the relatives shocked. The in-laws were trembling. It seems I hit the nail on the head. They were panicking, having been called out for fraud. So what? It's Samantha's fault for being deceived. Don't get so emotional over a one-time fraud. Even now, the in-laws refused to admit their guilt. As I was about to speak again, Vincent interjected. It's not a one-time thing. Dad, Mom, you've committed fraud scams multiple times, haven't you? Sorry, but I checked your mobile phones earlier. There were traces of calls to numerous unregistered numbers, dozens in a day. It's not normal to call unregistered numbers that much. That's proof it wasn't just once. And Vincent continued, I got a debt collection notice from an unknown company. I was surprised when I looked into it. Turns out, I'm listed as a guarantor for Mom and Dad's debts. Making your son a guarantor? What were you thinking, Mom and Dad? You must have been splurging on luxury brands or gambling. That's why you turned to fraud when you ran out of money, right? It seemed Vincent's words struck true, and the in-laws looked uncomfortable. And you've been calling Heidi repeatedly, harassing her for allowances, right? Was that to pay off your debts? Do you realize how much pain Heidi has been through because of you? Vincent's voice trembled with anger. I thought of all the mistreatment I had endured from the in-laws, and tears naturally flowed. Just a little more, and I could release all my pent-up frustration towards the in-laws. I bit my lip hard. That's because I wanted to get along with Heidi. Cassandra desperately tried to cover up, but it didn't work on me. I bought and delivered various things you wanted, saying your legs were bad, but that was a lie, right? I was surprised to see you today without any sign of discomfort. Cassandra's body trembled again. Vincent, seizing the opportunity to counterattack, said, I'm fed up with Mom and Dad's lies, making Heidi run errands and mocking her. Enough is enough. We're cutting ties with you. Apologizing now is too late, and I'll be reporting the fraud to the police. Vincent's strong words left the in-laws wide-eyed. It was the first time I'd seen the usually calm and kind Vincent show such anger. It must have been a shock for the in-laws, too. Wait, Vincent, what are you saying about the police? That's right, aren't we family? The in-laws desperately clung to Vincent. No, people who hurt my loved ones and commit crimes aren't my family. But he resolutely cut them off. The in-laws slumped to the floor, but after receiving cold glares from the relatives, they finally left the house. They probably won't come back today. Sorry for ruining Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas! Vincent raised his voice cheerfully, and the Christmas dinner began. We didn't talk about the in-laws anymore and enjoyed the dinner with everyone. As promised, we reported the in-laws to the police and they were easily arrested. Their sentence is still to be determined. I hope they receive a fitting punishment for the harassment they've done, including to me. The in-laws' debts amounted to about $30,000. From gambling and buying luxury items, they had no room for sympathy. They had borrowed money from neighbors too, and when I heard their stories, I was fed up. We apologized on behalf of the in-laws and paid off their debts by selling their house. That was the end of our involvement with them. I took maternity leave, and Vincent was transferred. Moving away from the in-laws was a good opportunity. Thinking about starting a new life with our child made me excited. A year after the baby was born, I heard about the in-laws from relatives. They were sentenced to 2 years in prison with probation. Now, in their probation period, they lost their house to repay debts and are living in a motel while working part-time jobs. There's no sympathy for people who deceived others and stole money. They should work hard and reflect on their actions during their upcoming prison time. Vincent, our child, and I were spending happy days together. Never again will we hear from the in-laws. We laughed together, building our new family home.